Hello, and welcome to Guys Dealings with Feelings, a podcast focused on men's health and emotional awareness. Jason, a licensed therapist with over 18 years of experience, and I, being profoundly affected by the death of my son, share grounded conversations and practical insights to help men navigate modern life with clarity and intention. Please like, follow, and share wherever you're listening or watching. Doing so helps us reach more men who could be positively impacted by this material. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and all the socials under Guys Dealings with Feelings. What's going on, Jay?
Hey, man. Morning.
All right. So today we're going to tackle worthiness. It's a positive side of the shame discussion. Um, I don't know that feeling lack of worthiness has to be shame, but we definitely covered some of this on the other side when we discuss shame. But there's a feeling that a lot of us are carrying around and we don't really talk about. It's not even obvious all the time. It doesn't always show up as sadness. And a lot of times it's just pressure to succeed or provide or to be better, to prove ourselves to ourselves. And underneath all that pressure is a belief that many of us don't even realize we have, and that's that I'm not enough unless I'm achieving something. And so today we're going to break down where that belief's coming from and how it's shaping how we live. So that last part where we've linked achievement to worthiness. I know in the shame discussion, I think it was you put some things pretty poignantly, but you know, we aren't what we produce. We aren't what we accomplish. A lot of that, I think, is coming from a childhood where we do some type of performance and we're rewarded because of it. Whether it's we do something nice for mom or dad, or we go out of our way to be nice to others and we get rewarded for it. We link the praise to what we did, and um, so a separation and a belief puts it's kind of self in there, and we're valued for what we do versus for who we are. And, I think a lot of times you'll get into the fact that, um, that it's because we've gotten conditioned to be that way because we're spending so much time outside of ourselves, which is ourself is that's where the worth is in ourselves. And because we're so focused on the external part of life, earning money to buy things, um, thinking we need things to have happiness. And we'll get a little more into that later, but that really drives us to this point of it isn't even me that I'm trying to create as value. I'm trying to create something else that has value that makes me more valuable. I have a nicer house or car, or my kids go to better schools, or whatever it is you've attached it to. Um, and then it creeps into who we are and our lack of confidence, and then it gives into our feeling of worth. And somebody's better than I am because they have fill in the
Something
blank.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a trap, I think, a generational trap that we've been caught in at least since World War II.
Yeah, I think it's been I mean, you're describing envy and,
Yeah, is that all, that's not even born as ego, is it? As much as it is
it depends
a
on well, there's a here, let me sort of refine the in a little bit. So, typically when we refer to ego, right, in the West, we are mostly referring to things we don't like, right? So I don't know, selfishness or arrogance or, I mean, and maybe even a lot of times we're just specifically referring to arrogance, right?
somebody
Um,
being cocky.
yeah, right. If you, um, does that feel true? Like typically when we talk about it, we're talking about some kind of
It's a negative
negative
connotation.
characteristic. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. But that's not, ego's not an entity. It's not a thing. Yeah. Um, what we refer to as ego, like, actually, at its core is an idea around a separate sense of self. Now that's technical in ways, but the what ego is actually referring to is the dynamic of always attending to the past and the future. So when we attend to the past or memory, well, that's the character, right? Like the experiences we've had, and And as a reminder, the only reason memory comes back around for us is to be integrated, processed. Once that occurs, now we can there can be a habit of focusing on past things, like we call it nostalgia or whatever, but this has habit really. But it still represents something needing to be integrated into our current experience, right? Meaning our attention needs to be integrated into the current experience rather than the memory, right? And so, and if you can um, reflect on the way the future operates in us, it's also the character, right? It's always the character in a situation or something. So what we call ego is actually related to our tendency to go into the past and the future. At its core, that's what ego is referring to. That's just not super familiar with us culturally, right? So ego essentially is a lack of presence, just a way of talking. Um, so that's one. I just wanted to refine that
So
word.
did the definition of ego just get hijacked?
No, it's just when Freud in the 20s used it, and the way he this is gonna be a radical generalization, man, but you can imagine all these internal, like, pistons working, all these forces and opposing forces, and then you have the superego that's, like, conscious and our conscious, social, norms, uh, and then you have the id, which is all instinct and desire, and then in the middle is the ego mitigating between both of those things. These unbridled desires and then these social norms and the ego. That's sort of how Freud talked about it, right? Like a mediator between all these internal forces. But the idea of a separate sense of self that has been talked about throughout human history. That's not So the term ego just got distorted in a way, and uh, now we don't. It's not. We just sort of use it, but we haven't really spent a whole lot of time thinking about or contemplating what it is we're referring to. You know?
What would be the first word misused by
Yeah,
an
yeah,
entire
yeah,
our
yeah,
society specifically?
yeah, yeah. There's a second. Um, Anytime somebody says to me, or like let's take this the way we're talking about it right now, like a feeling of a lack of worth, right? Okay. But that's actually not a feeling.
Well, the symptom would be other things, wouldn't it?
I mean, you could imagine, but let's explore it. I just want to refine it. I mean, but
So
because
maybe somebody has already figured out that it's a worth issue. So they come to you and say, "Let me let you finish your thought before I interrupt you." So that I I don't feel like I'm worthy. I don't even tell you
okay.
necessarily
All right.
how I got to that
I got it.
conclusion.
Anytime somebody says to me when they are trying to talk about their feelings and they use the word like beforehand, I feel like I'm not worthy, right? Or I feel like you're irritated with me. We're not describing a feeling, we're describing an interpretation of a feeling. So take for instance, if I'm in partnership and and I make this statement and I feel like you're irritated with me. Well, the person is describing a feeling that they're having, but they're associating it with someone's facial expressions or tension in their body or You see what I mean by that? Or tone of voice, right? So the person is actually referring to what they are experiencing. But we don't generally know how to just express that. So for instance, instead of saying something like, "Hey, I feel like you're irritated with me," a person might say, "Hey, are you okay? I don't like how you're talking to me right now. Are you all right?" You see what I mean by that? It would just be a straightforward expression. "Don't talk to me like that." "That's good, thank you." You know, it would just be very assertive and straightforward and authentic, right? The phrase, "I feel like you're irritated with me," is just reflective of a history of not knowing what we're feeling and not knowing how to express it. Um, so when people use so that for all of us, the sense of a lack of worth uh, is directly related to our well, for one, it's a distorted identity that is related to all the painful past experiences that we've had, right? But I wonder why it is that we don't know that worthiness is implied in our birthright. It's an interesting thing to me that we don't know that. Like, I'm not worthy for what? Like,
Well, I know here, and I don't know if it's all part of the master plan or whatever, but here, and I say that, think capitalism as I'm describing this. Um, we are again rewarded, whether it's just out of praise or with a trophy or whatever, for being the best at something. So, you were the nicest kid. I love you so much. You're so kind to everybody else. Uh, you treated that other kid so fairly. You gave your bubble gum to them when they dropped theirs. These things are just massively rewarded. All that's pushed to the external. All that's pushed for to drive us to try harder, work harder. I don't know. And so I think it gets warped as a child. It's not just I love you because you woke up today. And the parent thinks that, the parent believes that, the parent feels that, but that's not, and this is coming from me, this is just personal experience. You don't, when you wake up every day, uh, in the routine of getting kids ready for school and they've, got to go to practice and all this stuff, you don't wake up and just immediately think everybody needs to be rewarded because they woke up today. In hindsight, I would love to go back and do that. But in my late 20s, early 30s, I was not feeling that way. And that's how I should have parented. Hey, we all got up today. It's a magnificent day because we're here and the day is beautiful and this, that, and the other. Was we got to get ready. We've got to be at the breakfast table in 15 minutes because we got to
yeah, let's
depart in
go, let's go.
45, and everybody's got to share the bathroom, and yeah, bah. And so the thing happens. So I think as parents we drive, and had I known now what I know then what I know now, obviously I'd have done it way different. I'm just saying I played a role as a dad, and I know my existence was always, like we first when I opened, it was everything's always been rewarded for achievement, not ju- just cause
Yeah,
you're
yeah, I
you.
got you. I got
And so we feel like you got to earn it,
you. Mhm. Well, I
and
mean,
I
everything you're saying is accurate. Yeah, it stems from the messages we receive about what it's okay to express, right? I mean, that's like the root of it. So, but I want to um there's a woman in the country, her name's Tara Brock, and she has stuff, content on YouTube and writes books and stuff, right? And one of her books is called Radical Acceptance, And she talks about this. She calls it the trance of unworthiness. That's how she talks about it, right? And I'm just going to use some of the language I've heard her use, right? That at the core of this dichotomy of arrogance and shame, right? Our tendency to imagine or to actually think of ourselves as in a really high, highway, like better than others or smarter or whatever, above in some way or another. But anyway, the way she talks about it is that she comes at it from the the core, so from the place of identity. So she describes us as human beings as partially being made of stars and partially being made of dirt, right? And she teaches people about meditative work. And when I say that, what she's doing is she's teaching people how to understand thought, what thought is, how to relate to the mind, right? But in this culture, when most of the time when people are referring to themselves, they're referring to their thoughts. So we actually don't know how to disbelieve a thought.
In
So
instead of sharing how you feel.
if a thought goes by, if a person now is aware of the idea that I'm not okay, or I should have this, or I can't believe this, or look at what you did again, all that sort of critical narrative that happens, it is a reflection of an energy that is in the body. That is, you could say, reflecting that into the mind is a way of talking about it. So that would be shame. But because we don't know that, we're going to use language like, oh, I was beating myself up. No, that's not how it works. What was happening is you didn't know it was a thought. You didn't know that shame was there, the energy, the frequency of shame, and you didn't know how to just give that attention and grace and just allow that to be there, and then to just give it attention and just to relax, because shame actually is just a really uncomfortable energy that's in the body that needs our attention, non-judgmental attention, just to relax it, and it will go away. But because we don't really know how to relate to thoughts without getting all tangled up, right? Right, so that we consistently use language like that. "Oh, I was beating myself up." Uh, those are patterned thoughts that are related to the past, but in this very instance, they're related to the energy, the frequency that's in your body. That's shame. And so, typically, again, what we call a lack of worth is just an inability to disagree with a thought.
Yeah. And because we have no idea that's what's happening, we can't, really do anything about it. And what we've
We're
been.
just being affected by it.
Yeah, it's just
Believing it
affecting
to be
us.
true, that uncomfortable, painful, experience is there, and there's just nothing, we don't know what to do with it. Yeah, we're not
And
sure.
we feed it with the cycle of trying to prove ourselves to ourselves, others, whoever it is, all external, chasing success, money, or validation. We
Everything that we're
reach.
doing is meant to stop that process internally. So we're actually engaged in all these processes to try to stop what's happening inside. So actually, we're really working to avoid fear and avoid
r-
shame.
Discomfort, trying to
We're
avoid
working
the
to
discomfort.
yeah, because in reality, nobody cares what we're doing, what we're driving, what we have on. No, that's it. It's ridiculous. Nobody cares. We're not there. It's not really trying to get approval from who, from what. You see what I mean?
For
Uh,
what?
for what?
Yeah.
Exactly. Uh, one of the things that I'm so appreciative about us having these conversations is we get a chance to refine these concepts that we don't really think about that much on a day to day basis. I mean, people say to me all the time, I beat myself up. Like, hold on. What self are you referring to? And what are you referring to when you are referring to yourself? Right. Like I said, often we're going to refer to thoughts that go through the mind as ourself. You see what I mean? Somebody says, I was beating myself up. They're literally describing negative thought patterns
Hmm.
that they don't know, we don't know, are actually coming from the body, that they are directly tied, associated, linked to a frequency or an energy that's in our field of experience, in our body, is a way of talking.
Yeah, and we're trying to fit, and it's just a reaffirming cycle because we go to do something externally, make money, whatever, prove ourselves. We get this temporary relief because we're like, okay, well, we achieved our goal. We bought this house. And then all of a sudden it's gone because we're back because we didn't do anything. So all we did was we've just like, shit, I'm back in the same place. I'm not worth anything. I can't even buy a house and have any worth.
And
And
we're
it's
we're
because we
not
never addressed the
happy.
disruption. Yeah.
We don't have a sense of peace or a sense of ease, right? Or
Mm. Sh-
trust or
yeah. Showing up as overworking or perfectionism, anger.
and the way I would describe it is that a significant majority of our activity is being driven by a nervous system and an awareness that is not attuned to what's going on in the body. So essentially, our nervous systems are what run us around all the time trying to find safety, trying to find like stability, you know? And we're doing that in a reality that constantly changes. It's not a possibility for us to do that. The only way to get a sense of stability is to turn your attention inside and get a handle on what's going on inside your body and inside your nervous system. That's where stability happens. It's in the nervous system, right? Like, for instance, one of the things that we consistently experience is fear. Any what if that we experience is actually the frequency of fear. The significant majority of human beings do not know that, don't know it. And so, you know, that's, I would say, typically, that is actually what drives the frequency of fear, is actually what drives the negative self distortions, negative thinking patterns. Because essentially all those negative thinking patterns about oneself is an attempt to never to feel fear in the future. So what happens is the character gets beat up because it's feeling something that's unwelcome. And so much of what we ruminate about is related to future emotional experiences that we don't want to have.
And so we're setting ourselves up to, trying to set ourselves up to prevent that.
Yes, and what's actually happening is that we it's asking for our attention right now to put our attention on feeling, on the body, to really to have an understanding of what's actually happening.
But I keep looking off screen. I've got a doe right outside
Mm.
my window right here. Uh, I in the way and then the way that we try to attack it is wrong.
Is by
Instead
getting
of
things from the outside, yeah.
yeah, and thinking about it, which means we're just projecting what we think is going to happen
Yeah.
hopefully based on something that's happened previously. Most of the time, it's something that's never happened, where it's complete projection. We have
Yeah, yeah,
zero
yeah.
idea what's actually going to happen, and then we torture ourselves through the moment.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
and, and I
Yeah, it's either action or not, like
yeah.
and then the thing that I'll just relate it to my life, right? So before recovery, before waking up is the best way I would say it. I was driven by an idea that my fulfillment happens in the future. That was what I was taught, what I was programmed, how I was programmed to operate, programmed to see things, to imagine that, like, when I get this, the house or whatever it might be, um, which sets up a never-ending process of being dissatisfied because no matter what, when you acquire the thing that you've been longing for, it will provide a temporary
Yeah, the cycle. Yep.
change, and then it's right back to the day-to-day experience of always being in the head. You see what I mean by that? And so, yeah, the significant majority of us don't understand that being in the head chronically is a nervous system neurophysiological lack of development. And like I said, we're experiencing fear on a regular basis that we don't even know is happening.
it's almost, and having the deer right outside my window that I'm looking at,
Yeah.
that's how it's obvious when we're looking at a deer, how they're just instinctively out there. They're trying to eat and not get killed. It's where they are, always where they are. And we don't know what a deer thinks, but how they act when they see people or a car, they're very skittish, etc. We're doing the exact same things. We think because we're thinking that we're somehow navigating. But your point is, until we stop and get inside ourselves, we're doing the same thing the deer is doing, and the deer could be envisioning all this crazy shit all the time too. We have zero idea, but we're just acting instinctively like the deer, trying to avoid discomfort.
Yeah.
Maybe not
Yeah.
getting hit
Yeah.
by a car like the deer, but metaphorically speaking, we don't want
Being
to get hit by a
destitute
car,
or, you know,
did it, or be
losing
embarrassed, or
something we don't wanna lose or you're
yeah.
right,
Right.
typically.
So we're just out here just reacting all the time, just reacting, 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 and it keeps us in this constant turmoil. What we're trying to feed, we use this cycle that you're talking about. We try to help ourselves and feel worth by achieving something externally, minor
Yeah.
relief right back. And then we're in this loop we can't
Yeah.
get out of, and it just feeds the because I'm not worth anything. I can't get out of this. There's no way I'm getting out of
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah.
and the it really couldn't be easier. Um, I don't. I'm practicing. I'm always practicing, but I'm in my head. I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say that I'm not in my head. I spend a lot of time with the ability to be in my head, and I'll get there. I'll get to worrying about things, and it's so wild how simple it is, and yet it's still dodged. To just stop and spend 10 minutes guided meditation, or
Getting back in the body.
just to force yourself to get
Getting
back in the
back
body.
now, right?
Right now, right here. Yeah, start
That's the whole
now.
idea.
Yeah, I've talked about it previously. When anxiety kicks in, I know I'm stopping that immediately because I know what a snowball that'll turn into. And so I'll stop pretty
You
much anything
know
I'm doing to get the
yeah.
anxiety at bay.
Well, and listen, you just made me I think a lot of us because we've been programmed to imagine we're inbrained,
Hmm.
that when we think of anxiety, we think of the brain, you know? Even if we have some familiarity with the nervous system, it's still really entrenched and really programmed, you know? Um, anxiety is a full body contact sport. It's not just a brain to do you know what I mean? I mean, like, actually okay, just imagine a human for a second, right? For one, I can imagine some things a deer would experience, like emotional experiences would be a part of their lived experience. You see little fawn play, right? So the limbic system, which we also have, um, associates and is correlated with, you say, animal, like the emergence of social cohesion and social fabric. Um, so they would uh, want to mate. Life wants to life, so they would mate. They want to expand their territory. That's what life does. Just like us, it doesn't make us any. It doesn't make us that different that we build rockets and go to the moon. All animals want to expand their territory. It's not. It's not. Uh, that's not what makes us special. What makes us special is the self-reflective property, the ability to ask, "Who am I?" That's what makes us different, right?
Hmm.
And so, but the problem is we came into a culture which hides that question from us. It literally hides a deeper awareness around who we are from us, right? So this is how I like to sort of imagine and think about what we call anxiety, right? So you just imagine a human, right? Whatever that is, born into the world. We're here on this planet. It's pretty wild, really. But so just imagine us. Imagine a character, but in black and white. Remember that old Tobey Maguire movie where he started out black and white, and then through certain life experiences, eating a fruit, things like that, the world started to become Technicolor.
Mm-mm. I don't remember. I don't recall.
Okay. So, but that's really how things work for us at the deepest level. So, for most of us, if you imagine that black and white character, for one, when it comes into the world, it would not have been given a deeper context for who it is. What what's going on, what this world is, just no context for mind, body, none of it, right?
Eddie.
Okay. You can imagine most of us are like just a huge portion of humanity. The only part of the body that actually is lit up is sort of shoulders up. And it's not even in color. It's actually just imagine that character with a bright red face, is frustrated and afraid, right? Now, what the character doesn't know is that the reason that that's the case is the lights aren't on in the rest of the body. The brain is actually allergic to information that comes up to it from the body. So we're actually allergic to messages and information that is being sent from all over the body, nerves and skin and our our nervous system, which extends out into the environment like in this invisible bubble that is literally a part of our experience that we're not generally familiar with. And so the way the past affects us and our neurophysiology and lack of awareness and lack of a deeper sense of self or higher self, it's the whole body's turned off. Our relationship to the body is actually deeply turned off, but it doesn't seem that way to us because we feel uncomfortable shit all the time. It's just there's way more. And those frequencies that consistently affect us, fear, I don't say anxiety anymore. It's fear. It's a whole
Mhm,
body nervous system experience, right?
mhm.
That when it's happening, we're not aware it's fear. And so all our attention is given to planning and controlling and figuring out and analysis, right? We literally don't know that that's happening because the frequency of fear is in the body. Um, but man, I mean, that has certain implications, right? Like, I mean, I'm using language like frequency, energy. Well, it's we're still culturally catching up with that being just reality,
Mhm.
the way things are. I think for many of us, that idea might still be a little new agey, even though uh, I mean, everything is energy is pretty is
Yeah, it's been proven.
generally
Yeah, yeah.
familiar to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's definitely science that goes around it. So if, we
It's
know that
just
it's
observation with different instruments.
so is it as simple as
Learn to be in the
stopping
body.
when yeah, stopping when we understand that it's fear? Because what you just here's to kind of a synopsis of what you just said. We realize we have this anxiety coming up and we're worried, and so we're going to plan ourselves around it. Well, even if I know it's fear, so I've lost my job, I have fear that I'm not going to be able to pay my bills, and therefore I'm in my head trying to put together a way to make money. So the idea would be to stop the fear. I wouldn't do any planning. I would stop and sit and realize I just lost my job. I don't even have to think about, I'm not even doing any thinking. I'm meditating. So I can get back in the body and know that I'm sitting on whatever I'm sitting on, encased in whatever safe place I'm encased in, and get back in the body. And then I can recognize the fear is there. And
I gotcha. Well, yes and no. So we're not able to recognize fear when it's happening in the moment. So um, the way I like to describe emotional intelligence, it's knowing what we're experiencing as it's happening,
Mhm.
not reflectively looking
Right.
back and saying, "Oh, that was fear." Uh, we're working in the direction of knowing when it's actually happening, right? That's related to the way our nervous system and brain interpret and process energy or sensations and energy in our body, in our system. So because of the past, our system is actually allergic to uncomfortable energy, which you could call fear. It's just a lack of ease. It's just dis-ease, right? Which would come with a lack of presence, and it would come with the future, right? So when I use the word fear, I'm talking about the energy, not anything happening outside or gonna happen,
Gotcha.
So you can plan without agitation and without fear. It's you're just planning. Uh, and then maybe when you're done planning, you just move on to whatever it is you're doing right then. Like if you're cutting a carrot, you just cut a carrot, and you're not giving a lot of attention to planning and figuring out. Do you see what I mean by that? But if you've just lost your job, it's likely that it's gonna be a frequent process of knowing, "Okay, okay, just relax," and you're probably gonna have to work a little bit at being present and staying out of all that sort of catastrophizing. Yeah, 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 all those mental formations is what some cultures the way some cultures refer to it. They call it vritis, mental formations, um,
Yeah.
that we don't know how to let go of, that they attract our attention like gravity. Um, and so we don't know how to keep our attention at the center of gravity in our belly. We're just not familiar with how to do that. The body and our neurophysiology, meaning the way our hemispheres communicate, like everything inside is disconnected. And so our brain is allergic to that uncomfortable energy as it comes up. You can call it like a contraction, like a you know. Um, so the way that we become more familiar with how to know something uncomfortable is happening in the body is by sitting down on a regular basis and allowing our nervous system to heal, become more balanced, to become readjusted because of everything that's happened in our life. And so the reason we can't identify fear, primarily how the body is operating, literally how the hemispheres don't communicate, the frontal cortex, the limbic system, there's just an internal form of disconnection. So when an energy comes up in the body, uh, it could you could refer to it as feminine, when energy comes up, we have no idea. The left hemisphere doesn't even know how to communicate with the right hemisphere, doesn't know how to identify it, doesn't know how to just take a breath and notice that the heart rate is elevated and the breathing patterns have changed, right? And so
Mhm.
we it's kind of paradoxical. The body becomes more capable. We become more capable of identifying fear once we give our nervous system attention on a regular basis. If that makes sense. I hope
Yeah,
I
sure.
explained that well enough. And
Well,
then, yes, it's a matter of just knowing, okay, that's what that is, fear. And then literally focusing on your body breathing and giving your body attention. And that will calm the agitation down, which will allow the mind and all those, that will calm the mind down as well. So, a simple way of saying what I'm trying to say is we calm the mind down through the body. And typically we try to calm thinking down with more thinking,
think yes, right.
right?
I'm worried, so therefore I'm gonna make
I'm
a
gonna think,
plan
yeah, 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 yeah,
about
yeah. That's
about not
fine. It's not, there's nothing,
well, I
that's
think it's
okay.
separate.
But
It's
why are we
separate.
driving down the road and there's all this attention given to a plan? You see what I mean? Like, just we can be where we are and we can give it attention when we get home.
Yeah, they're separate. They're just totally separate. And some ways kinda to rebuild, uh, self, and since we're talking about it's awareness of our belief patterns. So kinda how we, being aware that, "Oh, I'm doing that thing again."
Now let me say this
Uh,
again. Let me just stretch what you said right there. Being aware of our belief patterns. I haven't really thought about it this way before. Actually, what that means is learning how to identify when we're believing a thought, when we accept the thought as true. There are some thoughts that we're easily able to discard, ridiculous, you know?
right.
And then there's some that aren't.
We believe them because we're thinking of them. We have that, and it's a belief. I mean, that's why we use the term belief because of its
But
deep
just think about what we're
intrusion.
believing the thought.
It, right, and the thought is make believe, and we've covered that. Whether it's a past something in the past, you think you're remembering it, but you're not, and then there's the future stuff, which obviously hasn't happened, so you're just projecting what you think is going to happen. And again, so it's a thought, and I encourage anybody listening to understand, and I say this a lot, the the principles that we discuss are so simple. They're simple to implement if you take the time to do it. It's not brain surgery or rocket science that you have to go study and read 1,000 books to understand. It is really not difficult stuff, but it does take a lot of work. It's not
Difficult in
difficulty.
practice, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it's difficult in practice, but difficult in nature or learning or being able to or whatever. You can literally do these things anywhere at any time, and you know, and they're just so life altering. To your point, you go through the body to calm the mind, you do these practices, and all of a sudden you've got this calm mind, and it's like, oh shit, I can perform so much better with this calm mind. And then you begin to take care of tasks at a better rate, and you begin to build. And so now the next one, separate identity from performance. Like we talked about, your value is in who you is in you. You inherently, you are valuable. The fact that you have a beating heart that was given to you, you didn't have to earn it. You got it. You were given life. That is the value, not your performance. Not you don't go out and earn your value. And I guess we could devalue ourselves in a moment, but after the moment, we're back to, and that's through just decision making. If you choosing to harm
Awareness,
somebody
yeah.
or things like this, you could devalue kind of, but it's still you're right back to where you were, and allowing accountability and reflection that Jason was talking about setting us apart, allowing for imperfection and honesty to self. So this is all internal, and being honest with yourself. So talk listening to the things that Jason's talking about and making an excuse for why you're not going to implement it is not being honest with yourself. It doesn't have to be, I see the sky is blue and I say, ooh, look at that red sky. It does not have to be like that to be dishonest with yourself. Being dishonest with yourself, saying, I don't need these things. I'm different because, um, no, we're all the same. And we've obviously been through different circumstances, but our bodies are going to react because they're bodies. They're going to have the chemical reactions. They're going to cause us to do things. Surely we're hitting on things that as you listening, you hear, oh shit, I do that. I do say those things. But we really try to hit on things that we think are going to resonate with you in the hopes that the light bulb will come on, whether it's at a time where you're really needing to hear it or at a time when it could really help. And stopping to do these things and recognize these things we're talking about are so life changing. We spend years trying to um, earn this feeling of worth, and we're chasing success, recognition, validation, and hoping that we're going to make it to this place. And it's just not. The place is right here. It's already with you. And it doesn't come from what we achieve. It comes from understanding that our value was never tied to things in the first place. We no longer feel like we have to prove ourselves. Everything, uh, everything how we show up in life is going to change. And when we stop trying to prove we are enough, we finally start living like we are enough. And that is such a changing, life changing experience. It, uh, it sucks when you don't have it, and then when you can have it and it goes away, you got to keep it up. I hope I'm clear in that the practice is so important. And I think that was Jason's point there at the end, that focusing on these things and really practicing on the body work and staying in the body is going to lend itself to. So take the job thing, it's going to keep coming up, but with practice, we can ease it. We can just ease it immediately, oh, that's just something rising up in me. I just got a little discomfort, and we can put it to bed. And
I thought of a really straightforward way to talk about something, right? If somebody could be open to the idea that being human is being human, and for a very long time we have asked questions like, "What? Who am I? What is this? What's happening here? Where are we? What is even going on here?" Right? And if people, if you could be open to the idea that through inner space and inner exploration, we've been graced many revelations. So we actually have some awareness around some things. Um, it's just for whatever, at this point in time in human history in the West, we're just really disconnected from who we are and nature. And I mean, we are nature. So we are almost completely, it seems, disconnected from who we are and what we are. And so just imagine this. Remember me describing the character with a black and white body, meaning that actually what's happening is that the character in that body is not in an association with life and with their experience a way that they imagine they are, that there's way more going on here, right? So I think all of us are open to the idea that we're more than we could ever imagine. And we're actually more than these temporary characters. Um, I think many of us are open to that idea, right? But um, here's what we've discovered over the years, that if you want to know those deeper truths about yourself, it happens through the body, not through thinking patterns. It's not how it works here. And so if you think what humans have done forever, you don't have to call it meditation. It's a simple thing. Somebody in a body, character in a body sits down. Remember, it's black and white. I don't care where they are. They're still suffering generally from the idea that they're going to live and die, right? And the deepest information on this planet says it's obvious that no, that's not the case. It's just not how things work, right? So when that person sits down and closes their eyes, right? And they take their attention and they put it on their body. Well, that's interesting. Why are you doing that? Right. And so then what they do is they practice over and over, keeping their attention on the body breathing. And anytime their attention drifts off into thinking patterns, or another way of talking about it is when attention drifts off into what's not happening, right? They learn to bring their attention back to the body. And anytime there's a sensation that says, get up, move, they learn to relax and just deal with that kind of intense feeling for a second, right? You know what I mean? So if you can imagine that over time, what might start to happen once their attention is consistently on the body, which is where deeper information is for all of us here, then what can you see how what that starts to do is turn the lights back on in the body? You see what I mean by that?
color begins to show up in the
That's
body.
literally what's going on, right? So, and think about it. If what I'm saying is we're actually allergic to sensations from the body, to energies in our own system, that's what we fear, feeling. Then we are willingly sitting down and choosing to practice feeling, and that it just allows us to begin to have more understanding around what we're actually experiencing. And then that also promotes a regenerative process at every level for us, cellular. It starts to reconnect the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere and the prefrontal cortex, the limbic system, and it starts to reconnect all that disconnection that our whole lives have contributed to.
Yeah, and that that sounds like it wouldn't work. I know somebody driving their truck down the road right now who's dealing with some of these symptoms, hears that, has never meditated, says, Al, that's a bunch of bullshit. It's not. That's the point I'm trying to get across is it's not bullshit. It seems so simple. It is so simple. It's just hard to do. But if you sit down and practice it 10 minutes a day,
If
take
if
10
you
minutes
yeah, if
from
you believe that thought, you have just believed your programming.
right. That's right.
So,
It
and if there's another thought that says, "Oh, whatever, you fucking idiot," well, you're continuing to believe your programming.
right.
This
Yeah,
is mechanical, what we're talking about, and humans have done it for thousands of years.
and the answers are there, and it's not a woo thing. It's not a vision that's going to come to you. It's that you will reconnect and bring the system back online. And the entire system is needed to be online, else it's trying to send signals that are then misrepresented and misinterpreted, and then we turn into these thought processes we're talking about. So anyway, all right. Well, good luck to everybody out there. And as always, we thank you for giving us your time. It's your most valuable asset. And until next time, stay in the fight. This world is a much better place with you in it.